How do you guys?
Okay.
No coward. No coward.
Henrietta.
You go, George.
Which was the
You know George Levine?
Yes, I did.
You
Yes, because of it.
Hello, Mr. Sinner. Oh, she's got
Could we have your attention for a minute? Our illustrious leader, Barry, wants to speak. You want the microphone?
Do I need the microphone?
Yes!
You sound good.
You know where we are. Okay. So first of all, obvious, we want to see behind me. Is that Ramat David?
Yeah. Now Martin took all his planes in.
So first of all, let me welcome you all to it's absolutely wonderful seeing you all. I mean, I feel that it's been such a long time since we've got together, and we all know why. And it is really wonderful being all together again, and I think that's what it's all about, just being together. Now, I welcome you to the 3rd annual Egumbogre Habonim picnic. I say 3rd, for me it's the first annual picnic, but I say 3rd because if I didn't, someone like Frank or Alec or Arie or Stefa are going to say, what are you talking about? We had a picnic in the 1990s. We had a picnic in the 80s. So I thought, well, if I say the 3rd, then they won't come and, yes. All right. Very simple. It's around 11:30, and that's the time we said we're going to start. Some people are still going to come a little bit later. And by the way, the generations that we have here go all the way back to the Hurst Grange Hashara. Stefa, where's Stefa? Put your hand up. Okay. Through to the very early days of the Eder farm and onwards. So it's really nice to see this whole collection of the generations all together. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to start with a sior, a tour. Stephen is going to be our tour leader. Now, the tour will take about an hour. It's going to go up steps, which you can almost see starting over there, and it continues up steps, and then continues up steps, and then just goes along and stuff.
Does it come
I
down?
mentioned the steps. No, you enter a big cave, and we lost a few on the other picnics. So, those of you who don't feel confident at steps, we're going to do a shorter tour. And John, where's John? Here we go. It's going to take you along, and it's going along a straight road to the cave of Yehuda Hanassi, okay, which is just a straight road there, and then it'll come back. So it's going to start. Stephen is going to give a general introduction to everybody. He's able to take on the tour 50, 60. I'm not sure Stephen will count, but we'll play it by ear. After that, we'll come back and we'll all be very hungry and we'll want our sandwiches. And I hope everybody's brought their sandwiches. And if not, I think I've got one spare. And then we're going to try a quiet sing-song. Given the nature of the place, all sorts of spooky sort of songs. And I might even have a ghost story to tell. A true story, mind. One that I told many, many years ago to Habonim in their tents before going to bed. We had to dry their sheets in the morning. Okay, so Stephen, I'm going to hang down.
The shit out of them.
Guy without my hat on.
Last one. So,
Okay.
but it's okay.
I'm
It doesn't work.
okay.
Use a blue.
Trust you're all well. I'm Stephen Kleiner, and I'm from Glasgow. Can I have a shout from everybody from Glasgow here? Always one of the strongest Keenim. I made Aliyah 9 years ago, and I've got it in good authority. I'm the last person from Garin Chet to make Aliyah. So there was a 40-year gap, but never mind. Welcome to Bet Sharim National Park. Can I see a show of hands of people who have been here before? Quite a lot. Who's been here in the last 5 years? Okay, so it's actually from a big group of about 75 people, there's only 3-4 people have been here in the last 5 years. I think anyone who has been here before will see a major change in the site. Okay, so what my plan is to give you an overview. Because we are such a big group, it's very difficult to walk and to talk. I would spend all my time waiting for people to catch up. So I've designed the tour so as we've got a minimum number of stops. We've got 2 stops, but it means that we'll have a period here. So Bet Sha'arim was a community built on a hill. It's built on this hill behind us, and the geology is a chalk. You can see that from the colour of the rock. It's white, and the contours are very gentle. It's not like limestone, which is jagged and ragged. The other thing about chalk, of course, is it's very soft, and that will have a bearing on what we hear later and why this became such an important site. So it's located on the northwest corner of the Jezreel Valley. And it's Bet Sha'arim, which obviously means House of Gates. It's the gateway to the Galil. And it was a very important site on a major crossroads, north-south, east-west axis. And we'll hear more about that as we move on. Okay, so for the first thing I wanted to say was, when you entered the site, I don't know if anybody saw an excavated site on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
And if you stopped and looked at it, it said it was a synagogue, a Galilean synagogue. Well, Galilean synagogues are to a penny this part of the world, and they were Byzantine from the 4th to the 6th century, and they followed a style, and they are to be found all over the Galil and the Golan. And they were built after the dispersal from Jerusalem, and the Jews started moving north into the Galil and the Golan. And that was a process that started in 70 CE with the destruction of the temple. The Jews started moving north, and it was heightened after 135 CE when the Bar Kokhba revolt failed and Hadrian destroyed Jerusalem and exiled all the Jews from there. So the progression was from Jerusalem up, gently up north, which lasted for a couple of 100 years. So that's an important excavation. we could climb up the hill. There was a road off which has got a no entry sign on it, but you can actually go up it. And up that road there were finds from the Iron Age, some pottery finds from the Iron Age, from the biblical period. So we know that there has been settlement here from as far back as the biblical period. There are also, we are aware and have knowledge of a settlement here during the Hasmonean period, which is the 2nd century BCE. And at that time, the settlement was known as Beit Shara. But whatever it was called, whether it's Beit Sharim, Beit Shara, it was in a very important spot. It was the gateway, as I said, to the Galil, but equally it was a gateway onto the Jezreel Valley. So just as Yokneam and Megiddo on the south were important gateways into the Jezreel Valley, so Beit Sha'arim was equally an important site for the ancients. Okay, so if we were moving up that hill, and the only reason I got to, if I had a smaller group, I would be taking the people up the hill. But obviously, with a group this size and the restrictions of the site, it's really impossible. So I have to try and explain it to you. So as we move up the hill, we come across a bigger excavated building. It is the stones are bigger. It's much grander. The stones are dressed, you know what that means, it's got an edge round them. And initially it was thought that it was Herodian, because we always associate dressed stones with Herod. But in actual fact, not all dressed stones were from Herod. The Romans did use it after Herod. And this building dates back to the 1st, 2nd century CE. So that's like 300-400 years before the first synagogue that we encountered. So the question is, this is a much bigger building. It is shaped like a basilical style. I don't know if everybody's aware of basilical style. As we all know about churches and synagogues in the basilical style, that is with 2 rows of columns and side aisles and a centre aisle and a big, but that was a style. But it was actually a Roman building. It was a Roman administrative style. It was used for courthouses, for making public announcements and the likes. And it was only later that the Christians and the Jews adopted the style for synagogues or for churches. And it's still the same. If you think back to your synagogues in Britain, you will recall that style with the 2 rows of columns, aisles on either side, and the central aisle. So that style is still very popular. So although we see it in churches and we see it in synagogues, it's not an intrinsically religious style of architecture. It's just what happened and the way it subsequently developed. But what is interesting about this building up there is its size, how grand it is, how much better it is finished, and the whole style of it. And when we think that here we are in a semi-rural area, pretty much in the middle of nowhere, it makes us wonder, what was this building? And also the fact that the Jews, this did not become a fully Jewish settlement until after the Bar Kokhba revolt. So the building actually predates this settlement being totally Jewish. So it's a conundrum. What is this building? So I have to say that the building further up is 400 years older than the first building. When the first building was built, the second building up the hill would have been destroyed by then. The chances are it was destroyed in an earthquake in 363, but it wouldn't have been there, and it wouldn't have been there for them to see. So we know that the building up, halfway up the hill, is presumably at one time it was a public Roman building. Then it was a synagogue,
And there's a third faction, a third thing, and this is what I want to put to you, that it had another use. And when we follow the course that the Jews were coming north, we know from the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, about the move of the Sanhedrin from Jerusalem. And I don't want to quote, I want to read the quote from the Talmud. The Talmud Bavli says that the Sanhedrin was exiled from the Lishkat Hagazit, the Temple Mountain, to the Chanut, and from the Chanut to Jerusalem, and from Jerusalem to Yavne, and from Yavne to Usha, and from Usha back to Yavne. We know it goes on a bit, and from Yavne back to Usha. So it was the Sanhedrin, which was the biggest ecclesiastical and civil Jewish court after the destruction of the temple, was moving all around the country. But it's slowly moving north, and from Yavne to Usha, and from Usha to Shfaram, and from Shfaram to Bet She'arim, and from Bet She'arim to Tzipori, and from Tzipori to Tiberias. So this is the Sanhedrin, the highest court of the Jewish people. And it's not inconceivable that the building that we find up the hill was the Sanhedrin. It's very feasible that it was the Sanhedrin, because as I said earlier, why would there be such a building of such a stature in this semi-rural area of little consequence? So it's very possible, and also from the timing of it, from being a Roman public building to being a synagogue, and then in the 1st, 2nd century to be the Sanhedrin, which was the seat of the incumbent head of the Sanhedrin, who was Yehuda Hanassi, who lived here. So we can say pretty certainly, not inconclusively, but pretty certainly, that was the Sanhedrin. Now, if people want, I'm happy to take them up later to show this building, to explain what I'm talking. I know it's hard to understand when we're not actually there, but for the variety of reasons that I've said, it's possible it was there. Also, it was in a much more open and accessible spot than any of the other parts of, or places the Sanhedrin was. It was, by then, it was the centre of Jewish life. There was Tzipori just down the road, which was the Jewish town, city, and we know, as I say, that Yehuda Hanassi, who was the head of the Sanhedrin, lived here. Not only did he live here, but he had been given land by the Roman authorities. And we'll come on to that at our next stop. So, if we continue further on up the hill, we come to a sort of metal monument of a chap called Alexander Zaid at the top of the hill. Now, Alexander Zaid was, I did mean to say that in the intervening period between the 4th, 5th, 6th century, there was an Arab village up here called Shechir Bet in the 18th and the 19th century. Anyway, Alexander Zaid came to Palestine in 1904 via Vilna and Bialystok, and he was part of the second Aliyah, and he was a founder member of the organization called Bar Giora, which morphed into Hashomer in 1909, and they were a security outfit. The first Aliyah didn't take much account of security and things like that, but the second Aliyah, the youngsters, the upstarts came, and they felt that they needed security, and he had his big horse and he would go around the area. Anyway, he initially, when he came here, he settled in with his wife in Kfar Giladi, but as usual with kibbutzim, he had a split from them and a machlaukas, and he moved down here to Bet She'arim, where he bought land from Yehoshua Hankin, who had bought the land for KKL, for Kakal, and he set up a farm here on the top of the hill here. And he used to go strutting around with his horse guarding the land of JNF. Now you might think I'm losing the plot here and I'm getting so far away from the idea of what we came to see, which is the necropolis and the caves. But if you bear with me, you'll see how it all comes together. So there was very little excavation in this site at all. Except in 1871, the Palestine Exploration Fund, a British organisation under the auspices of Queen Victoria, had come out and had mapped out the area, and they knew there had been a settlement here, but not much more than that. And it was only in 1936, one morning, after a really bad storm, that Alexander Zaid was out with his horse, and he noticed there had been a landslide on the side of the hill that he was living on, down here. And he went to investigate, and lo and behold, he finds caves. And lo and behold, in the caves are sarcophagi. So being a good citizen of the state, he gets in touch with the Hebrew University, who send out Benjamin Mazar, who's the grandfather of Eilat Mazar, the archaeologist of Jerusalem fame. And he comes here and they carry out an excavation. And sure enough, they find the biggest Jewish necropolis in the country, all the sarcophagi in the caves intact. And that's what we're going to see today. Okay, so as Barry said, I think I'm just about finished with that's the background to the whole story and how these are here. We will learn why they're here, why they're in this position later. But we can start walking. Now, I'm planning to have one stop at the top. And it's not a steep hill. It's really not hard, Barry. I think it's. I think most people should be able to make it. If you want to try, if you're really worried, stay here, and you're going to take a few around. I would encourage you to go up. I want to go up to the top. We will pass many cave entrances. They are clearly marked with names. Now the names are either people who we know were buried in them, or something that was unusual that was found in it, or something, a painting or something, or there's one called the unexcavated cave. So you know why it's called the unexcavated cave, because it's not excavated. So we will pass, most of the ones we will pass, and I want to make our next stop at the bench. It's called the second benches structure. And I'll explain to you why I'm stopping there. After that, we will come down the steps and we'll visit a couple of the bigger caves that were found, which are fascinating. Okay?
Stephen, is the way, is it shaded or
it's up this path here.
Is it exposed to the sun or is it shaded?
I think it's half and half. You can see.
In the last few weeks.
Me that, you mentioned.
I remember Betsheim used to go like to see it from the road. I don't know why this is different. Oh, this is a park.
Hello, Kenny.
Hello again.
Didn't get a hug yet.
I think I'll turn it off. Okay, so here we are. We're
I've schlepped you up here. Why have I schlepped you up here?
Because you're a sadist.
Because we're sitting on top of the tomb of Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. So who was this Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi? I've already, is one I would normally read or talk about if I was in Akko, in the Hammam in Akko. You know the Hammam, the bathhouse in Akko. I wouldn't normally talk about it here, but I thought it was actually quite apposite for this. I'm just going to read it. A wise Gentile, Proclus ben Plospus, once asked a question of Rabban Gamliel in the city of Akko when he was bathing in the bathhouse of the Greek god Aphrodite. Proclus said to him, "It is written in your Torah," in inverted commas, "and nothing of the prescribed items shall cleave to your hand." Deuteronomy 13:18. For what reason then do you bathe before an idol in the bathhouse of Aphrodite? Rabban Gamliel said to him, "One may not answer questions related to Torah in the bathhouse." Does anybody have got that? But when he left the bathhouse, Rabban Gamliel gave him several answers. He said to him, "I did not come into its domain, it came into my domain." The bathhouse existed before the statue dedicated to Aphrodite was erected. Furthermore, people do not say, "Let us make a bathhouse as an adornment for Aphrodite." Aphrodite, they say, "Let us make a statue of Aphrodite as an adornment for the bathhouse." Therefore, the main structure is not the Aphrodite statue, but the bathhouse. Rabban Gamliel continued, "Alternatively, there's another answer. Even if people would give you a lot of money, you would not enter before your object of idol worship naked, or as one who experienced a seminal emission, who comes to the bathhouse to purify himself, nor would you urinate before it. This statue of Aphrodite stands upon the sewage pipe, and all the people are urinating before it. There is no prohibition in this case, as is stated in the verse only. They are gods, which indicates that a statue that people treat as a deity is forbidden, but one that people do not treat with respect, that is due to a deity, is permitted." Okay, so that's
You think you can bend down and go in? Maybe.
No, don't go. So whose tomb is this?
This is the main one.
The rabbi, the one who had, the one who
Yes,
wanted to
you're
sit
down
upstairs.
there.
He sat upstairs. Where is his soul? Where is his body?
Where's the guy? It was behind us.
This is where I tripped before you were here.
Are you in here already?
Yeah. See this thing, I tripped right there. I didn't see that. And there's the car, that was the soul. And then down here was his body. That's how he you go down and see one of his.
Right.
Whoever wants to be buried first goes to the cemetery.
No, it's claustrophobic.
The traffic police coming. Oh my God.
I really have to bend. Turn around. And a camera.
I do not. I don't know why they can't go in the big door. Why do they have to go in the wee door?
Let's open it.
More romantic in the story.
How many people can do this?
I think it's quite big.
Anyone coming out? I did two things today. I never thought.
Is it muddy? What's muddy about it? There's only one way to find out.
Lots of dead bodies.
This one, even the cover and its shape, winged shapes.
Everybody wants to see it.
Oops, sorry.
No, straight. Right.
Huh.
Did you mean it was on the actual sarcophagus?
No, a stone is sitting on the floor outside the hall. That was afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's afterward, yeah.
Are you doing this for you?
No, I was asked to bring the camera.
The daughter of Rabbi Yehuda, son of Rabbi Daniel, that died at the age of...
And 6 months. A few commas wouldn't hurt too.
It might be nice if it was a person rather than a thing.
It's a very big grave for somebody who died 96 months.
That's a nice little tree.
There is a big, somebody asked me about the slab of glass. There's a big slab of glass.
I'm not bad. I'm not bad.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, young man.
Pleasant journey into the life instead of something else.
Okay. Beter Wondercam.
Never booked any So he stood up and he talked about jobs and possibilities in his and there was a doctor.
But we got Beter Won, don't worry.
First day 24, 9.
Always gnashing. God, love it out. Look at this. It's a Jewish tradition. Where's your car over there? Oh, okay. Petevon. Oh, I like them. Petevon to everybody.
Up to the 80s was okay.
Oh, you know it.
It was based on interviews.
Hello.
It was based on material that I got together, articles.
Numbers I can remember.
Hi, Carl. Kevin.
It's embarrassing.
Oh, professional, my goodness. God, oh, great. Lionel.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
¿Quieres escribir? ¿Sabes mi paradero? Si quieres escribir, sabes mi paradero. En el frente de Gandesa, primera línea de fuego. En el frente de Gandesa, primera línea de fuego. Comer bien, barato y de buena forma. Si tú quieres comer bien, barato y de buena forma, en el frente de Gandesa, ahí tienen una fonda. En el frente de Gandesa, ahí tienen una fonda. En el frente de Gandesa, ahí tienen una fonda. ¿Qué quieres para comer? ¿Qué se dice pasa, pasa? ¿Qué quieres para comer? ¿Qué te dice pasa, pasa? ¿Qué quieres para comer? ¿Quieres comer bien, barato y de buena forma? ¿Quieres escribir? Sabes mi paradero en el frente de Gandesa, primera línea de fuego. En el frente de Gandesa, primera línea de fuego. En el frente de Gandesa, primera línea de fuego. ¡Olé! ¡Olé!
There are some people here who will remember that song from 40 years ago, Lahakat Amian. We've got one more little ditty for you, one more little surprise.
We met 3 days ago, 4 days ago. Whatever happens, happens. Yep. Okay.
Anata Olehi Bahuto Sheli Anata Olehi Habibi Sheli
Bet Sheharim Yalati עם הבונים נשמתי, וקרסונים חמתי, יונתן שלי.
בשערים ילדתי, עם הבונים ילדתי, וקרסונים ילדתי, יונתן שלי. שם שואלים יש בחור טוב שלי, שם שואלים יש חביבי שלי.
אגב שם ילדתי, אגב שם נשמתי, אגב שם תמהתי, יונתן שלי. You're supposed to say it. We rehearsed this a few days ago, sorry.
ילדתי, הגשם נשמתי, הגשם תמתי, יונתן שלי. כיצד תגרש בחור טוב שלי, כיצד תגרש חביבי שלי.
יש שם יש שם בגברים, הרוחות והשדים, עם סיפור על כל הקורונה, יונתן שלי.
יש שם בגברים, הרוחות והשדים, עם סיפור על הקורונה, יונתן שלי. יפחדו בחור טוב שלי. What else can you do? חביבי שלי, אוי ויי.
מדבר הם יפחדו, משמרים ארוך סיפורים. Look out, cause Coral and Barry's coming to get you too.
Just look out, Coral and Barry, we're coming to get you too.
What did it say? Good try. Hold on.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, young man.
A pleasant journey into the life instead of something else.
Okay. Bete Habonim.
Never booked any play. So he stood up and he talked about jobs and possibilities in his country. And there was a doctor.
But we got Bete Habonim, don't worry. Always gnashing, God love it. Look at this. It's a Jewish tradition. Where's your car over there? Oh, okay. Bete Habonim. Oh, I like them.
before we get into a sing song where we can all join in, maybe someone can help hand out the song sheets.
Can you tell us the page number?
You should know these. There's no number.
Great graphic.